The diplomatic vessel moved through space like a silver dart cutting through darkness. Captain Lee Dae-hyun stood on the bridge, watching the stars stream past the viewports. He had made this journey dozens of times before, but something felt different today. His hands gripped the railing a little tighter than usual. Behind him, Ambassador Park Mirai was reviewing her notes for the upcoming trade negotiation. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. For 5 years, she had represented Earth at the Galactic Council, always fighting to prove that humanity deserved their place among the stars. "Captain, we'll reach Concordia Prime in 20 minutes, the navigation officer reported. Dae-hyun nodded. "Good. Ambassador, you should prepare yourself." Mirai looked up from her tablet and smiled. "I'm always prepared, Captain, though I wish this meeting was about something more pleasant than trade disputes." The station appeared ahead of them, a massive ring of metal and crystal that sparkled in the light of a distant sun. Concordia Prime was neutral ground, a place where all species of the Galactic Council could meet safely. At least that was the theory. The horizon's edge docked smoothly. Mirai gathered her team of 6 diplomats and headed toward the conference hall. Dae-hyun watched them go, that uneasy feeling still gnawing at his gut. He had been a soldier before becoming a ship captain. His instincts had kept him alive through 2 wars. Right now, those instincts were screaming at him. The conference hall was enormous, designed to accommodate species of all shapes and sizes. Mirai took her seat at the human delegation table. Across from her sat Councillor Thelvaxis of the Vryn Dominion. He was tall and reptilian, covered in dark green scales that seemed to absorb the light around him. His eyes were cold and yellow like chips of amber. "Ambassador Park," Thelvaxis said, his voice carrying a mocking tone. "How kind of you to grace us with your presence." Mirai kept her expression neutral. "Counselor, shall we begin?" The meeting started badly and got worse. Thelvaxis claimed that 3 human colony worlds were built on ancient Vryn territory. He demanded that humanity abandon these worlds immediately and pay massive compensation. "That's ridiculous," Mirai said calmly. "Those worlds were uninhabited when we arrived. Your own records show the Vryn haven't visited that sector in over 10,000 years. Thelvaxis slammed his clawed hand on the table. "You dare question the Dominion? You barely domesticated apes should be grateful we allow you to exist at all." The other alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but none spoke up. The Vryn were old and powerful. Humanity was new, having joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. Mirai stood slowly. "The human delegation rejects your claims entirely. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not pay compensation for crimes we did not commit. This meeting is over." She turned to leave, her team following behind her. Thelvaxis's voice echoed through the hall.
"You will regret this insult, human." On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Dae-hyun received the signal that the ambassador was returning.
"Prepare for immediate departure," he ordered. "Something's wrong." "Sir?" his first officer asked. "Just do it now." The ambassador and her team rushed aboard. Mirai barely made it to the bridge before Dae-hyun gave the order to undock. The ship pulled away from Concordia Prime, turning toward open space. "Captain, what's happening?" Mirai asked. "I don't know yet, Ambassador, but my gut says we need to leave, fast." As if answering his words, alarms began to blare across the bridge. "Sir, we have multiple ships decloaking behind us. Vryn warships!" Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. "Battle stations. All power to shields." 20 Vryn warships materialized from nowhere, surrounding the horizon's edge. The diplomatic vessel was not built for war. It had basic shields and minimal weapons. A transmission came through. Thelvaxis's face appeared on the screen, twisted in anger. "You insulted the Vryn Dominion, Captain. Now you will learn what that costs." "We're in neutral space," Dae-hyun said, keeping his voice steady. "Attacking us here violates every law of the Galactic Council." "Laws?" Thelvaxis laughed. "Laws are for species that matter. Open fire." The world exploded in light and sound. Energy weapons hammered into the horizon's edge from all sides. The shields held for a few seconds, then collapsed. The ship shook violently as direct hits tore through the hull. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4, someone shouted. "Engineering is offline. Medical emergency on all decks." Dae-hyun gripped his command chair as the bridge filled with smoke. "Route all remaining power to engines. We need to jump to hyperspace." "Sir, if we jump now with this much damage, we might tear the ship apart." "If we stay, we're definitely dead. Do it." The navigation officer's hands flew across her controls. Another explosion rocked the ship. Half the lights went out. Dahyun could hear screaming from somewhere below. "Jump drive charging," the officer said, her voice shaking. 30 seconds. No, we don't have 30 seconds. 20 seconds. More hits. The viewport cracked. Air began hissing out into space. 10 seconds. Dahyun looked back at Ambassador Mireille. She was holding onto a railing, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead, but her eyes were fierce, unafraid. 5 seconds. 4. 3. The entire ship groaned like a living thing in pain. 2. 1. Jump. Reality twisted. The horizon's edge vanished from normal space, leaving the Vrin fleet behind. But the damage was done. In the medical bay, 73 crew members lay dead. Another 100 were wounded. The ambassador's entire diplomatic team had been in the section that took a direct hit. None of them survived. Dahyun sat in his captain's chair, staring at the emergency lights. His ship was dying around him. His crew was dead or dying. And for what? Because they had refused to give up human worlds to an alien who thought humanity was beneath him. "Captain," the communications officer called out weakly, "I've managed to get the long-range transmitter working. We can send a message to Earth." Dahyun stood. Every muscle in his body ached. "Good, record this." He took a breath, then began speaking. His voice was calm, but underneath it was something cold and hard as steel. "This is Captain Lee Dahyun of the Horizon's Edge. We were attacked without warning by Vrin warships while in neutral space. 73 crew members are dead, including the entire diplomatic team. The Vrin Dominion has committed an act of war against humanity. I am transmitting all recordings of the attack. Captain Dahyun out." The message was sent across the vast distance between stars. It would take hours to reach Earth, but when it did, everything would change. In his command chair, with his dying ship around him and his dead crew in his mind, Dahyun allowed himself one small, grim smile. The Vrin thought they had just taught humanity a lesson. What they had actually done was wake something that should have been left sleeping. They had started a war with the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had no idea what was coming for them. The message reached Earth at 3 a.m, Geneva time. Admiral Kang Jisoo was already awake, standing in her office at the United Earth Defense Command headquarters. She had learned long ago that bad news always came in the middle of the night. Her aide knocked on the door, his face pale. "Admiral, we have an emergency transmission from the Horizon's Edge." Jisoo watched the recording twice, once to understand what had happened, twice to control her rage. 73 dead, an unprovoked attack, an act of war. She pressed the button on her desk that would wake up every military commander on Earth. "Get everyone to the war room. Now." Within an hour, the room was filled with generals, admirals, and strategic planners. On the main screen, the footage from the Horizon's Edge played on repeat. The Vrin ships appearing from nowhere, the energy weapons tearing through the hull. The screams. "How long until the Galactic Council convenes?" Jisoo asked. "They're meeting in 6 hours, Admiral." "And what do we know about their likely response?" A young intelligence officer stood up. His name was Yoon Ha-jin, and he was the smartest xenobiologist Jisoo had ever met. "They'll do nothing, Admiral. The Vrin will claim we fired first. The Council will ask for an investigation. By the time they finish talking, it will be too late." "Too late for what?" Ha-jin pulled up a star chart. "The Vrin are already moving their fleet. 3,000 warships heading toward our outer colonies. They think this will be quick. They think we'll surrender rather than fight." Jisoo leaned forward. "Tell me about the Vrin military, Dr. Yoon." Ha-jin's expression was grim. "They haven't fought a real war in over 4,000 years, Admiral. Their current military exists mostly for ceremonies and parades. Their tactics come from old computer simulations. Their weapons are designed to look impressive, not to be efficient. And their ships, big, heavily armored, but slow. Their pilots train maybe 50 hours a year in actual flight. Their Marines practice combat maybe once a month. It's all ritual to them, Admiral. They've forgotten what real war looks like." One of the generals laughed bitterly. "They picked the wrong species to attack." Jisoo nodded slowly. "What they don't know is that humanity never stopped preparing. We've been watching them for 30 years, learning their weaknesses, building weapons they can't imagine. They think because the galaxy has been at peace for 2,000 years, we must be peaceful too. But we've only had peace for 300 years, Ha-jin said quietly, and we spent that time getting ready for the next war." The room fell silent. Everyone there knew the truth. Humanity was different from every other species in the Galactic Council. Other races had evolved beyond their violent natures millions of years ago. Humanity had barely stopped fighting each other a few centuries back. The instinct for war was still fresh in their blood. Jisoo stood up. "Get me a line to the United Assembly. Every nation needs to hear this. And someone get me the exact position of that Vryn fleet." 3 hours later, Jisoo stood before the United Assembly. Representatives from every nation on Earth watched her on their screens. She wore her full uniform, every medal earned in blood and fire. "The Vryn Dominion has attacked us without warning or cause," she began, her voice carrying across the world. "They killed 73 of our people. They destroyed a diplomatic vessel in neutral space. They have violated every law of civilized space. And now their fleet is moving toward our colonies with the intent to destroy them." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The Galactic Council will do nothing. They are afraid of the Vryn. They are comfortable in their peace. They have forgotten what it means to defend themselves." Jisoo pulled up an image on the screen behind her. It showed a human child playing in a garden on New Busan, one of the colonies the Vryn were heading toward. "But we have not forgotten. We cannot forget. It is not in our nature. For 10,000 years, humanity has fought wars. We have studied combat like scientists study physics. We have perfected violence the way artists perfect their craft. We did not want this war, but they have brought it to us. And we will show them what happens when you attack the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The vote was unanimous. Earth authorized full military mobilization. Meanwhile, in the grand halls of Valkresh, the Vryn homeworld, Supreme Commander Thelvaxis celebrated his victory. He stood before his military council, his scales gleaming in the artificial light. "The humans will surrender within days," he announced. "Our fleet will reach their pathetic colonies, and they will see our power. They will beg for mercy." His advisors nodded in agreement, though some looked uncertain. "Commander," one of them said carefully, "the intelligence reports suggest the humans have been building weapons. Perhaps we should approach with more caution." Thelvaxis dismissed the concern with a wave of his claw. "Weapons? They are children playing with toys. We have 3,000 ships. They have maybe a few hundred. This will be over before it begins." He sent out his broadcast to the human colonies. His face appeared on every screen in human space. "People of Earth," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You have 10 days to surrender unconditionally. Abandon your colonies. Submit to the Vryn Dominion. If you refuse, we will rain fire upon your worlds. We will turn your homes to ash. This is your only warning." The broadcast ended. Thelvaxis sat back in his command throne, satisfied. Surely the humans would see reason. The human response came 6 hours later. It was brief. Just 2 words from Admiral Kang Jisoo, broadcast across every frequency. "Come try." Those 2 words sent a chill through some of the Vryn commanders, though they did not understand why. They would understand soon enough on Earth. In a secret facility beneath the Swiss mountains, Dr. Yoon Ha-jin briefed the Special Forces commanders on what they were about to face. "The Vryn think they are superior because they are old," he explained, pulling up biological data on the screens. "But age does not equal ability. Their reaction times are slower than ours. Their vision is narrower. They are stronger in raw physical power, but we are faster and more adaptable." He pulled up tactical data next. "Their ships rely on energy shields that are designed to stop other energy weapons. They've never faced kinetic weapons traveling at relativistic speeds. They've never encountered nuclear weapons. They banned such things as barbaric 4,000 years ago." A Marine colonel grinned. "So they've forgotten how to fight dirty." "They never learned in the first place," Ha-jin corrected. "Modern Vryn have only known peace. Their great-great-great-grandparents knew war. But that knowledge is lost. To them, combat is a theory. To us, it is a science." He clicked to the next slide. "They will learn the difference." Back in space, the Vryn fleet moved confidently through the hyperspace lanes. 3,000 ships, each one massive and powerful. The largest fleet assembled in 2 millennia. Inside those ships, Vryn warriors prepared themselves, polishing their armor and checking their ceremonial weapons. None of them had ever killed anyone before. Most had never even been in a real fight. They were heading toward a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. Admiral Kang Jisoo stood on the bridge of humanity's newest vessel, a ship so secret that it had no name yet. Around her, hundreds of other human warships waited in silent formation. They were not ceremonial. They were not for show. They were tools of war, built by a species that understood war better than any other in the galaxy. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Vryn fleet will reach New Busan in 36 hours. Jisoo nodded. Then we have 36 hours to get into position. Set course. Maximum stealth. When they arrive, I want to be waiting. The fleet moved like ghosts through space, invisible to the Vryn sensors, heading toward the ambush point. The Vryn had made their choice. They had attacked humanity, thinking them weak. Now they would learn their mistake, and the lesson would be written in fire and blood. The Vryn fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 3,000 warships appeared in the space around New Busan like a metal storm. On the bridge of the flagship, Fleet Admiral Thelchris watched the human colony world spin peacefully below. Scan for defenses, he ordered. The sensor officer worked at his station for several minutes. Admiral, I'm detecting minimal military presence. Perhaps 3 small defense platforms, a handful of civilian ships. This will be easier than expected. Thelchris nodded. Open a channel to the colony. Let us offer them one final chance to surrender. What the Vryn did not know was that human sensors were far more advanced than their own. The defense platforms they detected were decoys. The real defenses were hidden, waiting. On the colony below, Colonel Oh Sunwoo stood in the command center watching the Vryn fleet on his screens. He was a large man with calm eyes and hands that never shook, even now with 3,000 enemy ships overhead. Sir, they're hailing the colony, his communications officer said. Let them talk. Our people are already in the shelters. Time? Admiral Kang's fleet will be in position in 30 seconds. Sunwoo smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then we wait 30 seconds. In space, invisible to the Vryn sensors, the human fleet had positioned itself perfectly. Admiral Kang Jisoo stood on her bridge, watching the enemy formation. They were grouped close together, confident in their numbers, not expecting any threat. Weapon status? She asked quietly. All systems ready, Admiral. Kinetic kill vehicles are locked on target. Nuclear-pumped lasers are charged. Hunter-killer drones are armed and ready for launch. Stealth status? We are completely invisible to their sensors, Admiral. They have no idea we're here. Jisoo took a deep breath. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Humanity had prepared for this moment for 30 years. But knowing you might have to fight a war and actually fighting, one were very different things. She thought of the 73 crew members who died on the horizon's edge. She thought of Ambassador Park Mireille and her team, killed for doing nothing but their jobs. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Kang. You know what they did to us. You know why we're here. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Fire at will. Hell came to the Vryn fleet. The first wave was kinetic weapons, solid chunks of metal accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They struck before the Vryn even knew they were under attack. 30 warships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by impacts that released more energy than nuclear weapons. The Vryn shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid matter moving that fast. We're under attack. Someone screamed on the Vryn command channel. From where? I can't see them. Shields are useless. They're using solid projectiles. The second wave was worse. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers, weapons so powerful and so focused that they cut through Vryn ships like paper. Another 40 ships died in seconds. Return fire! Fleet Admiral Thelchris ordered, his voice high with panic. All ships return fire. But they could not see what they were fighting. Human stealth technology was decades ahead of Vryn sensors. The human ships moved like shadows, constantly shifting position, never staying still long enough to be targeted. The third wave was the worst. Thousands of small hunter-killer drones launched from the human ships. Each one was barely larger than a human, powered by AI that could think and react faster than any living being. They swarmed through the Vryn formation like angry wasps, seeking out weak points in shields and armor, attaching themselves to ships and detonating. The Vryn tried to shoot them down, but there were too many and they moved too fast. From the surface of New Busan, Colonel Sunwoo watched the battle. It lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, 2,800 Vryn ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors scattered, jumping randomly into hyperspace to escape. Should we pursue, sir? His tactical officer asked. Sunwoo shook his head. No, let them run. Let them tell their commanders what happened here. In space, Lieutenant Bae Hyejin flew her starfighter through the wreckage of the Vryn fleet. She was young, Barely 25, but she was one of the best pilots in the human navy. Her squadron had been held in reserve during the main battle. But now they had a different mission. Gold Squadron. We have a disabled Vrin flagship at coordinates 337 Mark 45. The colonel wants it boarded and secured. Follow me in. Her squadron of 12 fighters swooped toward the massive Vrin ship. It was drifting, its engines dead, its shields down, but there were still several hundred Vrin warriors inside. They landed in the ship's hangar bay. The moment the fighters touched down, Marines poured out. Colonel Sunwoo led them personally, his assault rifle held ready. The Vrin warriors met them in the main corridor. There were 50 of them, wearing ornate armor and carrying energy weapons that looked more like art pieces than tools of war. The two forces faced each other for a moment. The Vrin looked confident despite their situation. They were bigger than the humans, stronger. They had trained for ceremonial combat their entire lives. What they had not trained for was actual war. The fight lasted 8 minutes. The Vrin were brave but clumsy. Their movements were predictable, trained for show rather than efficiency. They aimed their weapons carefully, taking time to line up perfect shots. The humans moved like water, fast and formless. They fired from cover, used grenades to break up formations, and coordinated their movements with hand signals and quantum-linked communications. When the Vrin tried to charge with their ceremonial blades, the Marines simply shot them. War was not fair. War was not honorable. War was about winning, and humanity had spent thousands of years learning how to win. When it was over, Colonel Sunwoo stood over the body of the Vrin commander. He felt no joy in the victory, only a tired sadness. These warriors had died because their leaders were arrogant and foolish. Secure the ship, he ordered. Get medical teams in here for their wounded. And someone find their communication system. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Kang received the report. Admiral, Colonel Sunwoo has secured the Vrin flagship. He's ready to broadcast. Put him through. Sunwoo's face appeared on every screen in human space, and on every screen the Vrin had access to. Behind him, Vrin prisoners were being treated by human medics. The colonel's uniform was stained with blood, but his eyes were clear. This is Colonel O. Sunwoo of the United Earth Defense Forces. Today, the Vrin Dominion sent 3,000 ships to destroy our colony. They believed we were weak. They believed we would surrender without a fight. They were wrong. He gestured to the wreckage visible through the viewport behind him. Of 3,000 ships, fewer than 200 escaped. This is what happens when you attack humanity. We did not want this war, but you brought it to us. You killed our people. You threatened our homes. Now you will learn what we have spent 10,000 years perfecting. His voice grew colder. You wanted to see what humanity is capable of. You wanted to teach us a lesson. Instead, you have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. We are coming for you. We are coming for every military installation you have, every ship, every station, every base, and we will not stop until you understand what you have done. The broadcast ended. In the silence that followed, Fleet Admiral Thelkris sat alone on one of the surviving Vrin ships, staring at his screens. His claws trembled. His scales had lost their color. He had led 3,000 ships into battle. He was returning with fewer than 200. The humans had destroyed his fleet so quickly, so efficiently, that he could barely comprehend what had happened. He sent a message back to the Vrin High Command. His voice was broken, all arrogance gone. They are not like us. They do not fight for honor or glory. They fight to win. Every move is calculated. Every weapon is designed for maximum effect. They showed no mercy to our military, but I saw them treating our wounded afterward. They are not cruel. They are just efficient. We have made a terrible mistake. These humans are not primitives. They are war itself, refined and perfected. We cannot defeat them. But on Valkresh, Supreme Commander Thelvaxis refused to believe the reports. One battle, he hissed. They won one battle. We will send more ships. We will crush them. His advisors looked at each other nervously, but none dared speak up. In human space, Admiral Kang Jisoo stood on her bridge and gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Set course for Vrin space. All ships combat formation. We're taking this war to them. The human fleet turned and jumped into hyperspace, carrying war to a species that had forgotten what war meant. Behind them, New Busan remained untouched, its people safe, its fields still green under the alien sun. And across the galaxy, other species began to realize that humanity was not what they had thought. They were something far more dangerous. The human fleet moved through Vrin space like a surgical knife, precise and unstoppable. Admiral Kang Jisoo had studied the Vrin military structure for years. She knew where every important base was located, every shipyard, every supply depot, and she was destroying them one by one. The strange part was how careful the humans were. They sent warnings before every attack, giving civilians time to evacuate. They targeted only military installations, leaving cities and towns completely untouched. When Vrin escape pods launched from dying ships, human vessels picked them up and treated the survivors. It confused the Vrin. It terrified them even more than the attacks themselves. "Why do they spare our civilians?" a young Vrin officer asked his commander. The commander, who had survived the battle at New Busan, answered quietly, "Because they do not need to kill them. They are showing us that they could destroy everything if they wanted to, but they choose not to. It is worse than if they were simply cruel. It means they are in complete control." On the planet of Lixnar, a neutral world where many species gathered, Envoy Lixandra watched the human advance with growing amazement. She was a luminari, a species of peaceful energy beings who had existed for millions of years. She had been assigned to observe and report on the human military. Her reports were being read across the entire Galactic Council. "I have watched the humans fight for 3 weeks now," she wrote. "What I have seen challenges everything we thought we knew about warfare and about humanity. They do not fight with rage or hatred. They fight with cold calculation. Every attack is planned to minimize both their own losses and unnecessary enemy casualties. I watched them destroy a Vrin shipyard today. They sent a message 48 hours in advance telling everyone to evacuate. When the time came, they used precisely targeted weapons to destroy only the military sections. The civilian quarters were left intact, not because they had to, but because they chose to. The Vrin are learning what it means to fight a species that has perfected warfare. The humans have weapons the Vrin cannot defend against. They have tactics the Vrin cannot predict. They have technology the Vrin do not understand. But most frightening of all, they have restraint. They know exactly how much force to use, no more and no less, that this is not barbarism. This is warfare as a science. Supreme Commander Thelvaxis read the reports from the front lines with growing desperation. Every day brought news of more losses. The human fleet was cutting through Vrin space like it was not even defended. He called an emergency meeting of his war council. "We need to stop them. What options do we have?" One of his generals spoke up. "We could use the planet killer weapon." Everyone in the room went silent. The planet killer was an ancient weapon, built millions of years ago and never used. It was kept as a symbol, a reminder of the dark past the galaxy had left behind. "If we use it on one of their colonies," the general continued, "they will have to negotiate. Or," another advisor said quietly, "they will glass every military world we have in retaliation." Thelvaxis slammed his fist on the table. "They are primitives. They would not dare." But he knew deep in his heart that he was wrong. The humans had shown they were not primitives. They were something far worse. They were experts. At the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session was called. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the human war. Most of them were afraid. Some were fascinated. All of them were trying to decide what to do. Ambassador Cho Min-soo represented humanity. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He did not look like a warrior. But when he spoke, everyone listened. "The council asks why we do not stop," he said calmly. "You ask why we do not accept a peace offer. I will tell you why. The Vrin attacked us without cause. They killed our diplomats. They threatened our colonies. And when we defended ourselves, they called us primitives and barbarians." He pulled up footage of the attack on the horizon's edge. "This is why we fight. Not because we want to, because we must. The Vrin started this war believing we were weak. Now they are learning the truth." An ancient counselor named Praetos rose slowly. He was over 8,000 years old, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was like wind through ancient trees. "I have access to historical records that most have forgotten," he said. "I know things about the evolution of species that even the Council has not seen in millennia. I have been studying humanity since they joined us 30 years ago, and I have come to understand something important." He gestured to a display that showed the timeline of various species' development. Every species in this galaxy went through a violent phase. We all had our wars, our conflicts, our dark ages. But most of us evolved past that phase hundreds of thousands of years ago. Some of us millions of years ago. He pulled up human history. Humanity is different. They achieved sentience less than 300,000 years ago. Their last major global conflict was only 300 years ago. In galactic terms, they are still children. They are still in what we call the war phase. The chamber filled with worried murmurs. This does not make them evil, Praetos continued. It makes them dangerous. They have not evolved past their violent instincts. They have instead perfected them. They are what the universe creates when a young species faces constant conflict. They are survivors, fighters, warriors by nature and by necessity. He looked directly at the Vryn delegation. You attacked a species that still remembers how to wage war. That still teaches their children military history. That still builds weapons in preparation for the next conflict. You woke a sleeping dragon, and now you are surprised that it has teeth. The human fleet arrived at the outer edge of the Valkresh system, the Vryn homeworld. They did not attack immediately. Instead, Admiral Kang sent a message. This is Admiral Kang Jisoo of the United Earth Defense Forces to Supreme Commander Thelvaxis. We are now in orbit around your homeworld. We control the space around your planet. We could destroy every military installation on your world within an hour, but we do not want to. End this war. Surrender your military forces. Accept our terms, or we will be forced to continue. On Valkresh, in his command center deep underground, Thelvaxis made a desperate decision. He activated the planet killer weapon. It was hidden on a moon base disguised as a research station. It began charging its massive energy core. If they will not leave, he said, we will destroy one of their colonies. Then they will have to negotiate. One of his advisors looked horrified. Commander, if we do that, they will what? Attack us? They are already attacking us. At least this way we have leverage. The charging of the planet killer did not go unnoticed. Human sensors detected the energy buildup immediately. Within minutes, Admiral Kang knew exactly what the Vryn were planning. She opened a direct channel to Thelvaxis. Her face appeared on every screen in the Vryn command center. Supreme Commander, she said, her voice cold as space itself. We know about the planet killer. We know it is charging. We know which colony you are targeting. I am going to say this once and only once. If you launch that weapon, we will respond with overwhelming force. We will turn every military world you possess into glass. We do not want to do this. We have tried to minimize casualties. We have tried to be precise. But if you force our hand, we will show you what human rage truly looks like. Choose. Thelvaxis stared at the screen. He looked at Admiral Kang's face. There was no anger there, no emotion at all. Just cold certainty. He thought about his people. About the millions of Vryn on military worlds. About the history and culture that would be lost. His claw hovered over the firing button for the planet killer. Admiral Kang waited, her hand on her own weapons console. Around Valkresh, human warships locked their weapons onto every military target on the surface. The entire fleet was ready to fire. The moment stretched like eternity. Finally, Thelvaxis's claw moved away from the button. He slumped in his command chair, all the fight going out of him. Stand down, he said quietly. Power down the weapon. It is over. His advisors looked relieved. Some were crying. Admiral Kang nodded slowly. A wise choice, Commander. Now let us discuss terms. The war had lasted 4 weeks. In that time, humanity had systematically dismantled the Vryn military without destroying a single civilian target. They had shown the galaxy what modern warfare looked like when practiced by a species that truly understood it, but the real shock was yet to come, because humanity's terms of surrender were not what anyone expected. Admiral Kang Jisoo stood in the observation deck of her flagship, looking down at Valkresh. The planet was beautiful, covered in purple oceans and green continents. Millions of Vryn lived down there, going about their daily lives, probably terrified of what would happen next. Captain Lee Dae-hyun joined her at the window. His ship, the Retribution, had been repaired and upgraded. He had asked to be present for the peace negotiations. What are you thinking, Admiral? He asked quietly. I am thinking about Ambassador Park Mirai, Kang said. About how she spent 5 years trying to prove humanity deserved respect. She died believing she had failed. I wish she could see this moment. She would be proud of how we fought, would she? Kang turned to face him. We destroyed over 2,000 ships. We killed thousands of Vryn warriors. We brought an entire civilization to its knees in 4 weeks. Is that something to be proud of? Daehyun considered this. We did what was necessary. Nothing more, nothing less. We did not choose this war, but we ended it in the only way that would prevent future wars. By showing overwhelming strength combined with restraint. Now no one else will make the same mistake the Vryn did. Kang nodded slowly. I hope you are right, Captain. The peace negotiations took place on a neutral station. Supreme Commander Thelvaxis sat across from Ambassador Cho Minsu. The Vryn commander looked broken, his scales dull, his eyes haunted. Around them, representatives from the Galactic Council watched in silence. Minsu pulled up a document on the holographic display. These are our terms. Everyone in the room leaned forward, expecting harsh demands, expecting humanity to take revenge for the unprovoked attack. First, Minsu said, the Vryn Dominion will surrender all military vessels and weapons. Your shipyards will be dismantled. Your military bases will be shut down. Thelvaxis nodded. This was expected. Second, reparations will be paid to the families of those killed in the initial attack on the horizon's edge. The amount will be determined by an independent council. Again, this was reasonable. Third, the Vryn will formally apologize before the Galactic Council for starting this war. Thelvaxis's claws clenched, but he nodded. The shame would be great, but it was deserved. Fourth, a permanent human military presence will be established at Concordia Prime and other neutral stations throughout the galaxy. The council representatives murmured at this. It was a bold demand, but after what they had seen, none would argue against it. And fifth, Minsu said, and here he paused, humanity offers to help rebuild the Vryn military. The room erupted in shocked voices. Thelvaxis stood up suddenly, his chair scraping across the floor. What? Minsu remained calm. We will help you rebuild your fleet. We will train your warriors. We will teach you how to actually defend yourselves, not as conquerors teaching defeated enemies, but as allies teaching friends. Why would you do this? Thelvaxis demanded. We attacked you. We killed your people. Why would you help us? Ambassador Cho Minsu stood up and walked around the table. He stopped in front of Thelvaxis and looked up at the taller alien. Because we know war, he said simply. We know its cost. We know what it does to civilizations, and we know that the best way to prevent future wars is not to destroy your ability to fight, but to teach you how to fight properly, so that next time a real threat comes, you can defend yourselves. He gestured to the other council members. Look at all of you. You have lived in peace for so long that you have forgotten how to protect yourselves. The Vryn attacked us because they thought they were strong, but they were not strong. They were just old. What happens when a real threat emerges? What happens when something from outside the galaxy arrives? Who will defend you? The room was silent. Humanity will, Minsu continued. We will be your guardians, your protectors, not because we want power over you, but because protecting others is what warriors do. We are violence refined. We are chaos harnessed. We are what the universe creates when it needs something defended. Let us do what we do best. At the main council chamber, Envoy Lixandra stood to speak. She had been observing humanity closely for weeks. Now her words would carry weight with the entire galaxy. I have watched the humans wage war, she said, and I have learned something profound. They are not monsters. They are not barbarians. They are simply younger than us, still in their violent phase of evolution. But what makes them unique is not their capacity for violence. It is their capacity for restraint. She pulled up footage from the war. They could have destroyed Valkresh. They could have killed millions. But they chose not to. Every attack was calculated to minimize loss of life. Every target was military. Every civilian was spared. This is not the behavior of savages. This is the behavior of warriors who understand the true cost of war. Another counselor stood. But should we trust them? Should we allow them to become the military power in the galaxy? Ancient Praetos rose once more. We should, because they do not want power. They want purpose. Humanity is a warrior species in a galaxy that has no wars. They are guard dogs in a house with no threats. Give them purpose or they will find their own purpose. Better to have them protecting us than seeking other outlets for their nature. The vote took 3 hours of debate. In the end, it was nearly unanimous. Humanity would become the military force of the Galactic Council. They would train other species. They would maintain the peace. They would be the shield that protected a galaxy that had forgotten how to protect itself. 6 months later, Captain Lee Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the first class of Vrin cadets boarded his ship. They looked nervous, these young Vrin who had grown up hearing stories about the terrible humans who had defeated their fleet. Colonel Oh Sun-woo would be training them. Lieutenant Bae Hee-jin would teach them to fly. Human Marines would show them what real combat looked like. Nervous? Admiral Kang asked, joining him on the bridge. A little, Dae-hyun admitted. We spent 4 weeks fighting them. Now we are supposed to train them. That is the human way, Kang said. We fought the Vrin because we had to. Now we train them because we should. Our greatest strength is not our ability to make war. It is our ability to make peace after the war is over. On Valkresh, in a public ceremony broadcast across the galaxy, Supreme Commander Thelvaxis stood before his people. He wore no armor, carried no weapons. He looked smaller somehow, humbled. I led us into a war we could not win, he said, his voice heavy with shame. I called the humans primitives. I called them barbarians. I was wrong. They are neither primitive nor barbaric. They are simply better at war than we ever were. I take full responsibility for every Vrin life lost in this conflict. I failed you all, he paused, then continued. But the humans have taught me something. War is not about pride or honor. It is about survival. And sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to stop fighting. The humans could have destroyed us. Instead, they are helping us rebuild. This is a mercy we did not deserve, but one I am grateful for. Back on Earth, in her office in Geneva, Admiral Kang Ji-soo reviewed the latest reports. Human forces were now stationed at 14 key locations across the galaxy. Training programs were underway for 6 different species. The Council had officially recognized the United Earth Defense Forces as the primary military force for the protection of all member species. Dr. Yoon Ha-jin knocked on her door. Admiral, the first threat report just came in. Kang looked up. Already? Pirates in the Outer Rim. They have been attacking shipping lanes. The local species cannot stop them. They are requesting human assistance. Kang stood up and put on her uniform jacket. Prepare a task force. Nothing too large. Just enough to handle pirates. Yes, Admiral. And Admiral? The species requesting help are the same ones who voted against accepting our help 6 months ago. Kang allowed herself a small smile. Then we will show them what they have been missing. That is what Guardians do. We protect everyone, even those who do not trust us yet. 2 years after the war, Captain Lee Dae-hyun sat in the officers' mess on Concordia Prime. Across from him sat a Vrin officer named Kelrath. They were discussing tactics for an upcoming training exercise. I still do not understand, Kelrath said. You defeated us completely. You could have made us slaves. Why did you choose to make us allies instead? Dae-hyun thought about Ambassador Park Mirai, about the 73 crew members who died on his ship. He thought about all the Vrin warriors who died because their leaders were foolish. Because war is not about making enemies, he said finally. It is about protecting what matters. We fought you because we had to. We train you now because we want a galaxy where no one ever has to fight like that again. We are good at war, Kelrath. Better than anyone. But the greatest victory is not winning the war. It is making sure the next generation does not have to fight one. Kelrath was quiet for a moment. Then he raised his glass. To peace, then. And to the humans who guard it. Dae-hyun raised his own glass. To peace. And to never forgetting the cost of war. Somewhere in deep space on the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Kang Ji-soo stood watch. Around her, the human fleet maintained their positions. Silent guardians of a galaxy that had finally learned what humanity truly was. They were not monsters. They were not barbarians. They were warriors, yes. Dangerous, yes. But they were also protectors.